I have a standing guarantee that if I make a man or woman too bulky, too jacked, so muscular that they hate it, I will give them a lifetime refund. But whatever you've
Yeah.
paid me over, no matter how long, I'll give you all that money back. Building muscle is really, really hard.
Welcome to the Wellness Amazon podcast, where we talk about everything body, mind, and spirit, health, and wellness. No subject is taboo here, and we have fun peeling back all the layers. Let's do this. Welcome, everybody, to the Wellness Amazon podcast. Another amazing episode in the works here. Today, we have Salvador as our amazing guest. Thank you very much for being on the show. And we're going to talk everything strength training and building muscle and doing all the healthy things. So, welcome to the show, Salvador.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you specifically do.
Not much about me. I um, own and operate a small group training facility here in San Antonio, Texas. We focus primarily on strength training, strength and hypertrophy. So kind of building bigger, stronger muscles. Um, Prior to that, we've been in operation for 5, going on 6 years now. So we attempted to open March of 2020 and were immediately shut down. uh, So what way to start my first business. But we opened a couple months after that. We built a great community. We're super proud of it. Prior to that, I was a CFO at a chain of Mexican restaurants. I loved that job, loved the people I worked with. I thought it was amazing, but just wanted to do my own thing. And so here we are. Yeah. Going on 6 years now.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite the day to try to open an in-person business.
Yeah, it was the day before San Antonio put out the ordinance or order that everything was going to shut down, and so
Wow.
we were terrified, really sad. My wife told me I was allowed to be sad for one day, and then I had to figure something out, and so that's what I did. I moped around for 24 hours, and then we started doing at home workout live streams on Facebook that maybe one or two people would watch, and we just did that consistently the entire shutdown. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Mhm.
know a lot of businesses in the fitness field that actually went completely online just because of the necessity of it.
Yeah.
Well, kudos to you for sticking with it, and kudos to your wife for telling you you have 24 hours. And then,
It's momentum. If you give yourself momentum into a negative space, you're gonna end up in a negative space. So she didn't want me to build up any negative momentum. She wanted me to just keep looking forward. So I always appreciate her for that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I know you from Jen and Eliza, who were both on the podcast. And I remember when we aired the belly dance episode, somebody commented on, I don't know, a reel of some sorts. And I have never heard the saying before for whatever reason, but someone said a moving target. Depression cannot get a moving target, is what it said, right? And I think that applies to that as well, where yes, you can mope for a day, but then you need to move.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
Yeah,
I'm going to have a plan. Let me come up with a plan, so yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. So for people who are absolutely not in the space at all whatsoever, right?
Uh-huh.
Which there is people out there. What is strength training? Because when we hear it, I mean, yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory, but some people just don't know how the concept looks like.
Yeah. I thought about that question. And I can give you kind of a broad definition, right? But obviously, as you get into the details of the nuance, things get messy. But strength training, to me, if I were to try to define it for a textbook, would just be something like, structured physical activity with the purpose of increasing force against an external load, utilizing weight as your metric of progress, right? So that's really fancy way of saying, like, strength training is lifting weights to try to get stronger, and it's working if the weights are going up. Basically that. Um, a lot of times people define strength training is just applying force to an external resistance, um, and increasing that force output. But a lot of things can do that. Like if you're a runner, when you start, you're going very slow. As you start running faster, you're increasing force against the ground. So like your legs are getting stronger, right? So a lot of things can get you stronger. Um, so I like adding that caveat of utilizing load as the metric for progress when you're strength training, right? Because if you're running, the metric for progress is your speed, not necessarily your force output. Like it's your speed. If you're swimming, your speed. If you're swimming, your speed. Um, if you're doing something for reps, it's the number of repetitions you can get. And obviously, if the reps are going up at the same weight, you've gotten stronger, but it's something different there. So yeah, I like thinking of it in terms of like load. We are trying to get the load that you can handle larger and larger over time. So that's how I kind of define it.
Mm. What is the biggest misconception? Because that's the question I always ask people when they come in. Like, what is it not, right? And I know that you've probably heard all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Um, I think a big misconception a lot of people have when they're looking at strength training is they tend to confuse like metabolic conditioning or like high intensity interval training or circuit training as a kind of strength training, which is no knock on those modalities. But something like an F45 or an Orange Theory or even your typical like group fitness class, you're going to see usually like stations set up, right? And so they'll have like some 10-pound, 15-pound dumbbells at this station where you're doing some sort of like biceps curl overhead press or kettlebells or battle ropes or something like that. And you're getting a great workout. You're getting sweaty, your heart rate is getting up and you're moving the whole time and you're going from each station for time. You're trying to maximize the number of reps, etc. Um, and you finish the workout and you're tired and you might even be sore the first few times. And you might see that when you started, you were using 5 pounds and then after 6 months, now you're using 15 or 20 pounds. So you have gotten stronger. Um, but I wouldn't necessarily consider it strength training
Mm.
because we don't have that metric of monitoring progress via progressive loading, right? Has the load on? We're not monitoring that. We're just seeing if you're showing up, you're getting sweaty, you're having a great workout. So those are great modalities for people that, you know, um, simply want to exercise, they want to get healthier, they're not necessarily concerned about getting stronger. They just want to do something. I think those are great modalities. But if the goal is, no, I do want my joints to get stronger. I do want to tone my muscle up. Maybe not necessarily the best um, modality to accomplish those goals. But we have to set goals. So, what is the goal? Is it to just do something, or is it to do something with this specific outcome in mind? So, I think that's the biggest misconception people have is that circuit training to consider that strength training just because it's with weights.
Hmm. Hmm. My favorite is always, well, mostly from women, but I've heard some very few men say that. And I always go, huh? Oh, I don't want to get bulky. That's my favorite.
I have a standing guarantee that if I make a man or woman too bulky, too jacked, so muscular that they hate it, I will give them a lifetime refund. But whatever you've
Yeah.
paid me over, no matter how long, I'll give you all that money back. But to date, I don't think anybody has taken me up on that offer. Building building muscle is really really hard. Like building muscle, true, dense, big, strong muscles, it's really hard. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of effort inside and outside of the gym. Nobody's doing it by accident. You're not doing it by doing that one extra rep with a 15-pound dumbbell. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think is going to happen? Like you said, you lift a kettlebell and you look like Popeye. Oops.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not happening. I've been working to try to build muscle for better part of 10 years now. I still have room to grow for sure. Mhm.
Yeah. So if someone goes to you and does your program, what does the programming and like the framework usually look like?
So I I there's so I start I usually start from a very general like framework of programming. I take a lot of inspiration from like the Muscle and Strength Pyramid written by like Dr. Eric Helms. So it's levels that we're looking at Typically, the first level is adherence. So, we want to make sure that the program is something people are going to enjoy, they're going to stick to, they're going to actually do. Doesn't matter how scientifically advanced the program is, if people don't do it, they don't do it. So typically I'm looking at adherence. And with in-person training, there's more to just the number of reps, sets, and exercises that you're doing. You also want to take into consideration just the atmosphere, the personality types, the group structures, things like that. So we try to make it an enjoyable experience.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's a big thing when I'm drawing up programming. And you may have heard this phrase in the past, like, "Oh, discipline beats motivation." Right? Don't rely on motivation. It's got to be discipline. And I don't necessarily believe in that. I don't think it's discipline. I think that's a little too virtuous, you know? I think it's more so don't rely on motivation, rely on enjoyment. You got to
Mhm.
enjoy what you're doing. You got to like what you're doing. People don't do stuff they don't like to do. But if you like to do it, you're going to do it. I usually start from that framework of adherence. From there, just you looking at volume. Uh, so the number of sets, intensity, how hard they are, and then the frequency, how many days a week. And I try to structure things to where if someone's only coming in twice a week, they're still hitting everything. If they're coming in 3 times a week, they're hitting everything plus. Um, and then after that, it's just usually exercise selection. So what muscle groups are we targeting? What exercises make sense to ensure that we're finishing within an hour and still allowing for adequate rest times, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and then I train my coaches and we think about those exercises in terms of like movement patterns. This allows us to modify for the person. So you may go in and you're super fit and you can barbell back squat, no problem. But someone else it's their first day, maybe they're sitting on a box and standing up with
Mhm.
their own body weight, using handles to assist them. Those are both squat patterns. So if we think of it in terms of a squat pattern, they're both squatting, they're accomplishing the goal just at their different levels of fitness. That's kind
Mhm.
of so you can expect if you're like working with us, like we're going to be able to get you started somehow. Yeah.
Mm. Do you still
Yeah.
offer online coaching?
I do. We several of my clients will graduate from in person, maybe because of schedule or just they become advanced to the point where they have goals that we wouldn't necessarily be able to meet with 3 55-minute sessions a week.
Mhm.
Um, so in that instance, it's like, hey, you know how to do these exercises. You're very proficient. Let's switch you to an online program. You're going to train at like Gold's Gym or something like that, but you're training, 4 5 6 days a week.
Yeah.
So usually we funnel them through there. I also work with another company part time called Barbell Medicine. And so, uh, they brought me on board onto their coaching roster and they do their side on marketing and stuff. And if they find a client that would fit well with me, they pair us and I'll program them remotely. And that
Mhm.
involves reviewing video and tape and providing feedback and cues and stuff like that. Mhm.
Mhm. When it comes to personal trainers, so I've had a lot of bad experiences, and of
Oh,
course, it's usually through those big names, what you were just talking about, those big gyms, and they try to hook you the first time you get this free session, right? And
uh-huh.
I picked up on something that you just said. First of all, it needs to be enjoyable, right? And you have proper rest times in between. So these personal trainers that I've experienced with, and this happened like 4 times now, right? Different gyms, 4 times, same concept. It is to the point where I cannot walk the next day and I'm crawling because
Yeah.
your first session, you're trying to hit everything in there. And one of the guys, that was the funniest story ever. He said, "So what's your goal, your end goal?" And I said, "Well, one of those days, I think I want to accomplish a pistol squat." He
Yeah.
made me do a pistol squat that day. Like he didn't understand the like down the road, not right now. Okay. So
Yeah.
when I cannot go lower myself onto the toilet the next day, I will
Yeah.
not come back
Yeah.
because I can't. So how do you, any comment about this?
I think I think that I think there's a lot of factors that can lead to that. So we'll start from the maybe the top down. So we're talking about like what corporate's telling these trainers they need to do. And so a big one is like they need to make sure the client has a great workout. And then, well, how do we define that? And usually a great workout is it needs to be hard and they need to be sweating and you need to be pushing them. That's what clients want. They want to go in and feel like they had a great workout. And so that usually means shortening rest times and, high repetitions and, giving you exercises that are potentially too challenging for you to do. And then explaining to you all the ways that you're moving wrong so you can see them as the expert and why you need them, right? Oh, you're doing this wrong and doing that wrong. And so a lot of times it's just trying to build value, which backfires. If you have someone who's just, hey man, I'm barely getting started. You're overwhelming me with all this information and cues and stuff, and I'm just trying to like get my legs a little bit stronger. So it kind of starts from that corporate end. Oftentimes it's an experience of the trainer as well. A lot of these guys are maybe they're kinesiology majors, or they got an online certification. They studied for 3-4 weeks. They got an online certification, but they've never really worked with people before. And most of the trainers that I've interviewed have never even had a coach of their own. And so they don't know, like they've never been mentored by an experienced coach to know how to coach. They're just kind of figuring stuff out. And so there's a big lack of experience on that end. So yeah, like I think that would kind of lead to a lot of that. On the client side, the soreness, I would say you're going to be, I set the expectation with clients. You're going to be sore. You're going to be sore after your first couple of days. And that is primarily if you haven't been doing anything, just going through the range of motion with no weight, you're going to be sore. So oftentimes I will give very, very entry level exercises where they can objectively see like, yeah, this is not a hard exercise. And so it helps them kind of put that together like, okay, he did not give me a hard exercise. I was literally holding onto handles and squatting down, and I could use my arms to help pick me back up. And that's all I was doing. I didn't even use any weight. Had assistance the whole time, and my legs were still baby giraffe legs. And so that usually selecting the correct exercise to help someone understand like it's just your level of fitness is very low right now. But that's also the responsibility of the trainer to know I don't need to be giving everybody goblet squats or barbell back squats or front squats or dumbbell thrusters for timed reps their first day. Like they are just getting started. You could give them the easiest, simplest exercise. I'm going to have you sit on a box and stand up. And that is going to be just as effective as all that other crazy stuff. But you'll build more trust with that person. They'll trust that you're not going to try to do anything crazy with them and that they just need to get their level of fitness up, and they'll stay with you to see that level of fitness rise.
Mm.
So that's kind of like what I see typically with like inexperienced coaches, corporate trainers, stuff like that. They just don't understand how to build that relationship with the client and that trust with the client.
Yeah. And safety is what you just said is a huge thing. Yeah. In our modern world, and since we were talking about online coaching, and then we have, nowadays you can buy fitness equipment everywhere. You
Oh,
can
yes.
freaking AI, chat GPT, whatever. People do all kinds of stuff, right? Um, Talk to me about trainer versus no trainer and why a coach is so essential.
I feel like a coach or a trainer, an experienced one, someone who knows what they're doing. I think the biggest benefit of utilizing a coach is just the reduction in the time in time invested, right? Like you could theoretically figure stuff out on your own, but it's going to take a lot of work on your end. You're going to have to watch a lot of tutorial videos, and after you do the tutorial, you're going to have watch it. You're going to have to film yourself, and then you're going to have to like go back to the tutorial. You're going to have to see how you did it correctly, what you did it, see how you feel. When you're trying to come up with your own workout programs, you're going to be trying to design out stuff for yourself, and it's going to be too easy or too hard, and you're going to get hurt, or you're not going to get hurt, and you're not going to see progress, or it's just trial and error, trial and error, trial and error. And so it's possible to do it on your own, but it may take you 3, 4, 5, 6 years before you really start figuring stuff out. Versus in our current society, we have division of labor. That trainer's already invested that time. That coach has already invested that time. And so they can just immediately like, nope, you need to adjust your elbow position for the tricep pushdown. This is the program I have written out for you. This is how we're going to progress it. Oh, you're not feeling great that day. Easy modification. Oh, you got injured. Easy modification. And you're just like not wasting time. So if time is valuable to you, then the value that you're going to see in the trainer is going to rise relative to how valuable, how much you value your time. So you just speed run things. I've had multiple coaches over the years. I still have a coach. I am a coach and I have a coach. Um, and so over time, as you gain experience, the reason for a coach might change. So the reason I have a coach is someone I trust, someone I've worked with for years, and I can just not worry about my program.
Mhm.
I don't have to spend the time and energy worrying about it. I can just tell him how I'm feeling. He's going to make the adjustments, and then it's off to the races for me. I can turn off my brain and just focus on the task at hand. And I use that bandwidth for my clients, right?
Right.
And to help them. And so, it all comes down to time, I think, for the most part.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I mean, out of personal experience, it's a safety thing too. Because I know that even with online programs and you do the things that you see and you think you have great form, the chances are you don't. And that, a coach like you can say, you're actually rounding your back, or you are, like you said, you have the wrong elbow position or whatever. I was recently diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So I'm
Okay. Yeah. Very flexible.
hyper
Yeah.
flexible. So I have no stability in my joints. So that is the focus. That's the first thing that needs to be done. However, if I would have always trained with a coach, that probably would have come out way, way before because, yeah, your elbow pits are facing the wrong way, girl. You know, that's, that's not humanly, that shouldn't be humanly possible. What are you doing? But I didn't. And I thought I'm doing it right. And I really hurt my shoulders through all of these things. So yeah, I can vouch for having someone who is just watching you too and making sure
Mhm.
you are, especially with free weights, doing the things correctly.
Yeah. It definitely helps a lot. And just that eye to see like, this exercise doesn't seem like it's working for you too well. Let's switch to this and go from there. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it does help a lot for sure.
Yeah. And with your background, which is fascinating from the restaurant and the hospitality side, because you do, I mean, that's project management, program man, that's logistics, that's people, that's everything management you can imagine when you do that, right? When you own a restaurant. How has your, I guess, training philosophy maybe also changed over the years? Because I can imagine with your skill level of just being connected to people, because you have always worked with people. Um, how has that changed over the years with all the experience you have?
Yeah, I really interestingly, like, I do really enjoy talking to people and working with people. I think that was what really helped me as an accountant was I could take the accounting language and distill it into something that the ownership could understand, you know?
Hmm.
So discussing, like, balance sheets and profit and loss statements and statement of cash flows and all this stuff, and people are like, "What?" And, I'm going over this is, 3-year ROI and,
Hmm.
valuations, and a lot of that stuff goes over people's heads. So I really enjoy teaching and talking to people. I think that positioned me really well when I did transition into coaching because I still like teaching. It's still teaching. It's just in a different way. As far as like my training philosophy, when it comes to the people aspect, I think that's remained relatively the same. Uh, you know, uh, I want to connect with people. I want them to trust me. I want them to feel safe. I want them to feel heard, but I also want them to put in effort. I want them to, and we have core values at the gym, and it's consistency, communication, and effort. Those are our business core values, and those are the kind of values that I try to instill in my clients when they start training with me. I want you to let me know how things are going. I want you to keep at it, and I want you to try. those
Hmm.
those three things have not changed. Those are fundamental to the business, to myself, and how I approach clients. I would say if my philosophy has changed at all, it would be as far as like the outcomes. When I started training, I had this idea of I want to be such a good coach and I want to teach people so well that after, a certain amount of time, they won't need me anymore. They
Mhm.
can go off into the world and do all of these great and wonderful things because they won't need me because I'm such a good coach and I've trained them up so, so well. And I think over time I've realized like the problem with that is I'm trying to push my values and my wants and aspirations onto others. And that doesn't that can create conflict because maybe someone doesn't have that as their goal.
Mhm.
Maybe their goal isn't to, oh, I want to work with this guy and learn everything I need to learn so I can go off and do this by myself one day and be, you know, some people I can work with for 6 months, 12 months, a year and a half, and they still don't know the names of any of the exercises we're doing. So they can walk in, I can say, hey, we're bench pressing today. Which one is that one? It's this one where we lay down with the bar and do that. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, I remember. I remember. Okay, we're going to do biceps curls. Which muscle is that? It's the biceps. Which one is that again? And like, okay, and kind of walking through. But
Right.
and that can be frustrating if you allow it to be. But when you adjust your perception of like this person is here
Mhm.
every time they sign up for a session, they are consistent. They show up, and once I show them what to do, they put in a lot of effort into doing that. And when they don't understand something, they're asking me. Those are my three values. They are living them. Why am I going to get frustrated with this person? That doesn't make any sense because I have this goal of wanting them to know everything. Like, that doesn't make any sense. They're here because this is just something that they know they need to do for themselves and they're going to try. And as far as learning all this stuff, they don't care. These people are professionals, they're teachers, they're lawyers, they're doctors, whatever. And like, why am I going to put my values on them? Doesn't make any sense to me. So I think that would be the biggest shift in my philosophy, I think, over the years is to just be there to help people out, respect them, and respect where they're at and respect where they want to go.
Yeah. And that's this is great you say that because I think working with people in general, every time you work with people on a very, very consistent basis, you need patience.
Mhm.
We need patience for our kids, for our spouses, for ourselves, for which usually we don't have patience for ourselves. Um, I mean, if you work with people like so closely, like what you do, is yeah, you that's a great mindset to have. I think if you wouldn't have that mindset, you would get you would hate your job.
Yeah, I've had some coaches I worked with, like we've hired, and they didn't last more than 8 months because they could not detach themselves from their own like goals, and so I think that's important. And you're right, it doesn't matter the profession. If you're working with people,
Mhm.
am I trying to force my goals on them? If so, I need to stop that and I need to just respect what are their goals and help them achieve them. And that's it. And makes it a lot easier, makes you a lot more empathetic.
Mhm.
And honestly, it probably opens you up to listening more than you speak. So then you can actually create a plan that's going to motivate them to do what it is that they want to do.
Mhm. Do you have this and this is now we're going to go in those side alleys that I mentioned before we started
Sure.
recording because
Yeah.
as a health coach, so I was always on the nutritional side, right? I'm not a personal trainer. I don't do exercise, but I work or I used to work with clients about food.
Yeah.
And where I would lose my ever loving mind and my patience was when, because my goal is that you're happy and healthy, right? And if I would see self destructive behavior, that's where I would really have to dig deep to then be like, okay, there's another underlying issue that we have to talk about that has nothing to do with the food anymore. And I'm not talking about necessarily people that are it can go either way. It can go, I'm eating all the things that you told me not to eat, or this, oh, I'm not eating anymore at all because I want to lose weight faster. And I'm also not doing what you told me to do, right? It can go either
Yeah. We
way.
get those. Yeah.
And you're like, no, that's not what I said. It's not what we're doing, right? Stop it. And then usually we would talk about it. Yeah, there was psychological issues coming up, things that are not actually the problem at hand, but a totally different core problem that then would have to be addressed first. Do you see that sometimes in your practice too, where you have people that are just coming in with some sort of mindset where you're like, there's something else going on here?
I hate to say it, but like recent divorcees is typically
Yeah.
a common one. If they come in for the sales consultation and they say, "Yeah, I just got divorced," in my mind, I'm like, well, I, the chances that they're going to sign up have gone from 50-50 to 85%. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
but also the chance that they're going to stay past 2 months is very, very low. And I think it's just because they're trying to find themselves again,
Mhm.
and they're so they're trying to do something for their body, and they know exercise is good for them, and they want to have some sort of action. Um, so usually I'll kind of see that, and the best thing is just for me is just like support them when they're there, make sure they are training, make sure they're understanding the movements and stuff. And then when they, decide they want to leave, just leave the door open for them to come back, end on good terms. Yeah, totally understandable. So I see that a lot. It's more so on the nutrition side. I would agree with you where we see, uh, like, behavior that doesn't necessarily align with a person's stated goals,
Mhm.
and that's usually the hard one. So oftentimes I'll like someone coming into the gym and they're joining the gym because they want to lose weight. And, we start them on a nutrition program with my wife, who's our nutrition coach. And
Mhm.
they're not doing any of the things that is being asked of them. They haven't even opened their nutrition app. They haven't looked at anything. Um, and so oftentimes, like, I try to separate the training from the nutrition insofar as, like, look, let's just focus on making sure we're getting consistent with the workouts. We can talk about the nutrition and the training, all that other stuff later. Let's just let's have you fall in love with the lifting first. Let's have you fall in love with the exercise because that's going to have a benefit regardless. Maybe you won't lose weight and you probably won't. If you're not adjusting your nutrition, you probably won't lose weight, but maybe we might see some improvement in body composition. We're definitely going to see improvement in all health markers. We're definitely going to see improvements in strength and performance. So let's just kind of like focus on staying consistent with the exercise. And sometimes it takes 6 months, a year before someone like it just clicks for them. Like, huh, I've been doing all of this work for my body in the gym, but I'm not seeing any progress outside of the gym. Now they're motivated enough to like make the nutritional changes and stuff. And so sometimes you just gotta wait. You just
Mhm.
gotta wait and just be patient. Let them be on their own journey. You know, stay consistent with your messaging. And that
Yeah.
goes a long way. Yeah.
Yeah. Which at least then by that point you have a good baseline of, a habit that they now formed and they do probably gain some strength and yeah, that's
Yeah, yeah, because I think going back to our earlier question, misconceptions in general, people think that if they exercise, they will lose weight, and that's just not the
Mhm.
way it is. I've
Mm-mm.
been I've been training for a marathon for this last year, and I think I've actually gained about 3 pounds. In like my running went from maybe running 6 miles a week to running 30, 40 miles a week, and I've gained weight. It's like, how is that possible? And it's like, well,
Mhm.
it's just calories in, calories out. I finish these long runs. I'm extra hungry. I'm not
Right.
being as mindful about my portions and stuff, and I'm getting a little bit of weight. So yeah, you cannot out exercise a bad diet. But you can build, but exercise can promote a healthier lifestyle
Mhm.
because, and I've seen it. I've seen people working with us who they, borderline alcohol problem. They were drinking
Mhm.
every night. And then they would come into the gym and they would feel like trash. I'm talking,
Mhm.
what'd you do last night? Oh, we're not drinking again. Oh, okay, well, probably a good idea to like not do that. Give it a shot. And then they start pulling back on how much they're drinking because they're like, oh, I feel like crap every time I go into the gym. I didn't drink last night and I felt great going into the gym today and I like feeling great.
Mhm.
I was eating these really fatty lunches and stuff, and Sal recommended maybe not eating such a fatty lunch because my workouts will feel better in the evening, and they did. So now I'm eating a little bit leaner meat and veggies and stuff, and you know what I mean, like kind of adjusting those habits not for the purpose of weight loss, but to improve performance, and then you kind of see weight loss happen as a side effect, and then they're happy with that, and it creates a positive feedback loop, and they just kind of stay with that, and going, going, going. So
Yeah.
every situation is different. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this. Oh my God! No, we could talk about those things for 3 hours. But yeah,
Oh yeah.
the most used sentence I always tell my clients is, "You cannot outrun your fork." I'm so sorry, but it is, and I think social media really has done a number on that too. Exercising is more sexy eating a salad is not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is something that people don't see everywhere, but I can post a video of me doing yoga or whatever. It's just a thing.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, gym memberships sell a lot more than dietitian. You know?
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, do you train men and women differently?
Um, no. Short answer, no. um, I think that's both through just practical experience, and then also there's good data to back that up. Um, Men and women, when it comes to like strength and increases in strength or relative muscle size, they can run the same program. You're going to see the same outcomes. In absolute terms, men tend to gain more muscle, especially upper body muscle than women,
Mhm.
but they also have more muscle to start with. They have larger skeletal structures. So there are biological differences where men will gain more muscle, but relative to the amount of muscle mass they are carrying at the start, it's the same. So they're both going to grow 7, 12% muscle. As far as like training considerations, really, the only thing I ever take into consideration would be if a woman is maybe pregnant, and it's less so about it's less so about safety and more so about comfort. Um, like as their belly gets bigger, we're probably going to have to change some of the exercises, right? Like,
Right.
uh, barbell squat might not be as comfortable, so maybe we're switching to box squats because they just anatomically they can't get there.
Mhm.
Um, but as far as like intensity and stuff, it's all lifter dependent. We had one woman; she was a competitive power lifter, and so she was coming to the gym. She's a natural athlete. She was pregnant. I think she stayed training with us until she was about 7 months pregnant, and she was still deadlifting just fine. She was dead. I actually think she came close to PRing her deadlift. So she was almost as strong as she was pre-pregnancy towards the end of the pregnancy and she was pulling like 275 or close to 300 or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, but because she had already previous training, she could do that
Mhm.
versus someone who maybe sometimes we get women that come in and they are zero exercise experience. A month in, they get pregnant. And so they stay training with us. So we're just a little bit more aware of like, okay, well, what can we expect from them as they're progressing? But we still kind of expect to see some sort of progression, and just modifying the exercise selection if their pelvic floor is weakening and they are, feeling like they're going to pee their pants more often. Like, okay, cool. We don't go as high of an intensity. We lower the weight a little
Mhm.
bit, add a few reps, and kind of adjust from there. Um, those would be the only considerations typically. Um, Sometimes obviously like older women will have a hysterectomy, and so we're just during their recovery period, we're just adjusting exercise selection for that. But ultimately, yeah,
Yeah.
no real difference between men and women, which is a good thing. You don't have to be. It's not complicated. Just try hard. You'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have seen some trainers, and that might also be a little bit of a it's like the hip thing to do now, where the whole you need to train with your cycle and things like this, but at the end of the day, I mean, you are not your client. You don't know where they are and where their energy level is. And I also don't believe that everybody is the way, oh, this is your cycle, this is how you're supposed to feel like, because I don't. People tell me all the time, oh, right before your period you're going to be tired. Well, I'm not. So I run actually faster and longer, and I don't know why. It's just what it is. But I'm not going to be like, oh, I should feel tired, so I'm not going to do that. So yeah, it's a little tricky.
Yes. Yeah, cycle syncing is like the rage and like the hot thing to do. And
Mm,
I feel like that's just another form of the pink tax. You know?
yeah,
You're you're you are being messaged to have to pay for more expensive service because you are a woman and because of that. And it's like that's not a thing. A well structured program should have auto regulation incorporated in some fashion. And
mm,
auto regulation being giving the client the ability to adjust their load and their intensity based on how they're feeling for the day. And
yeah,
I tell my clients that all the time, especially my remote clients, like, hey, if I'm telling you, I want you to do these 3 sets at an intensity of 7, right? Like that's my best guess for what you
Mhm.
are capable of the day. And in the overarching program, what would be best, you know, to push you towards your goals, right? This is the best guess that I have. But if you go in that day and you're like, shoot, this is an intensity of 5, but I feel like a 5 is hard enough. Like it can be a 5 and a 5 can still
Yeah.
be hard enough for that day because you're tired. Because we don't
Yeah.
think twice about it when it's in the opposite direction, when you're supposed to do an intensity of 7, but you feel great that day. So you push it to an 8 or a 9,
Mhm.
right? Like nobody thinks twice about going harder, but everybody thinks, oh, I can't go easier. Well, no, you can. You just have to be in tune with your body, and just kind of like understand what hard enough feels like. And
Mhm.
that is a skill that
Yeah.
does take experience,
Yeah.
to know what hard enough is. But yeah, like, so I don't necessarily think, yeah, cycle syncing or adjusting training for someone who's like perimenopausal or menopausal, like it doesn't, it's just how is that individual performing, and give them enough room to kind of adjust up and down, I think is a better approach.
Yeah. And that I think is a like what you just said, that is a very, very hard line, even as a client to walk, because you don't want to be, not pushing yourself enough and
Hmm.
not always out of a comfort level, just hovering on that 5 because you just don't feel like it. But on the other hand, you don't want to push to where you're doing more damage than doing any good. So, but that's also
Yeah.
something that you can't really that's what the client needs to know, that they need to be honest with themselves.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's
And I
hard.
think, yeah, and I think it's one thing that's useful is from like an expert's point of view of like how I would do is knowing kind of just the science behind it, right?
Mhm,
So if I have a client and they want to tone up, right, which is just building muscle, they want to, I know that okay, we can accomplish that with loads as light as 30% of their 1 rep max. So like if they want to tone their legs and their 1 rep max on the leg press is 200 pounds, right? Like
mhm,
I know that we can go as light as 60 pounds and probably still see a benefit. All we need to do with that 60-pound load, though, is adjust the rep range because it just matters that we reach a sufficient proximity to failure. So if this person was using, I don't know, 200 pounds, so we'd go 80, let's say 75% of that, so 150 pounds. Let's say 150 pounds, we would want 6 to 10 reps with that weight, but 150 pounds is just too hard for them, but they're willing to work with me with 100 pounds. Okay, well, then we just need to go higher in the rep range as
mhm,
long as we're pushing that close proximity to failure. And we know that we can do up to 30 repetitions. Just the more repetitions you do, oftentimes other things will become the limiting factor, primarily the cardiovascular system versus the muscles. So that's why it's typically better to go a little heavier with a lower rep range. We like to do that 16 or less because we know cardio is not going to play a factor. But if that's what it is, that's what it is, and we can kind of adjust. So knowing the science really helps to adjust the training around the person and where they're at. So if we do have that person that they really don't want it to go past 5, you can see growth being at an RP5. You just might have to do more sets,
mhm,
right? you
mhm,
you could have got it done in 3 sets at RP7, RP8, RP10. You want to be 5, that's fine, but we're just gonna have to do some more sets there.
mhm.
And um, this circles back to what I talked about earlier with which is enjoyment. It also might be this person just hates doing the leg press. Every time I give them leg press, they hate it and they go RP5. But if I give them walking lunges, for some reason they're psychotic and they love it and they go super hard on walking lunges. Guess what? We're going to do more of, the thing that
Right,
they enjoy. And so that's kind of part of it too.
right. And if somebody hates walking lunges like me,
Yeah. 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 We might not do it. Sometimes I'll put them in a program like someone who hates walking lunges or Bulgarian split squats, and I'm just giving them 1 set. I'm just like, I just need you to do 1 set and just try really. And people are willing to, even though I hate this, I'll do it for the 1 set. I'm like, okay, good. And then, we
mhm.
kind of go from there. But yeah.
Yeah. And it's again that speaks to why having a personal trainer is important because you are the guy with the data. You're the guy who's doing the math. You're the guy who's like, okay, this is your starting point and this is how I can gauge a little bit where you are if you're cheating or
Yeah.
if this is just really just a tired day. Yeah.
Right.
More accurate than me trying to psych myself out or into some things.
Yeah, for sure. And we see that a lot with clients. Like they'll tell me, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you know exactly when to push me and you know exactly when to pull me back. And there's nothing magic about it. I'm just watching, just looking at it. Like, all right, like I know that your bar usually like the speed of your reps is usually about this much on a good day. Today's a good day. Doesn't matter how you feel. It's a good day when you push a little harder, you know. And I did without you trying, the reps are like, 20% slower, 30% slower. I can see that today's probably a good day to pull back a little bit, and so it's just, yeah, looking at bar speed, looking at position, and just getting to know people, caring enough to like learn different bar speeds for 80 something people, and just kind of sometimes I'll look at someone like, did you change your stance? Why'd you change? Oh yeah, I did. Like sometimes the lifter doesn't even know what they're doing different, but like I'll
Mhm.
remember. And it's just caring enough to like remember.
Yeah. And that really speaks to this concept of having someone holding your hand, because again, it is the things when you do them by yourself, you will not notice those things. And then you
Uh-huh,
get injured or overdo it or whatever. So, yeah. Mm.
for sure.
For someone who would like to start and who has never done this before, because, and I'm sure there's misconceptions out there, especially us, 80s and 90s babies. We grew up with aerobics and running and cardio and don't get too bulky, the whole thing. What is like a 3-month program or some simple things where you say this is really good for beginners?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. So there's two sides to that answer. The one side would be how to like assess a program. So there's like I mentioned that company I work with, Barbell Medicine. They have a beginner program called the Bridge. So if you look up Barbell Medicine, the Bridge, you'll find that it's a free program, and that's a great program for a beginner who has the idea of maybe they want to do some sort of powerlifting later on, right? Like it's not a powerlifting program, but it does have all the components in there for you to kind of like graduate to that. So the best program for someone, part of what they want to think about is like, okay, well, what is this program? Where is this programming positioning me to like go towards? Would be something there. Some other frameworks to know if it's a good program is just going to be kind of like frequency. How many days a week are you actually going to be making it into the gym that you can
Mhm.
do? Typically, um, you know, more frequency the better, because the volume would be distributed. Meaning, if you're going to do 20 sets in the week and you're going in 5 days a week, great. You're doing like 5 sets, each day. If you're only going in 3 days a week, okay, you're probably doing something closer to like 8 or 9 sets per day, or you know what I mean? Like we want to
Yeah.
adjust that volume accordingly. That's what frequency comes into play. So just how many days a week you're going to go in, you want to think about that when you're assessing a program. Um, Exercise variety, I feel like you would want, for a beginner, we want a lot of exercise variety. So there are some programs where you every day you're squat, like you're going to squat, you're going to overhead press, and you're going to deadlift. And then on the next day, you're going to squat, you're going to bench press, and you're going to deadlift. And the next day, you go back to squat, overhead press, deadlift. And it's just the same three exercises back and forth, back and forth. It's like, I don't know if those are necessarily the best types of programs, because when you're just starting, you want a broad base of fitness. And then over time, you can kind of specialize into like, okay, I want to get really good at these particular movements, but you want a lot of exercise variety. So that's something people want to think about when they're looking at a program. Auto regulation is important when they're looking at a program. So oftentimes, if you chat GPT something, it's going to say, oh, yeah, do 3 sets of 8 to 12. It's like, what weight do I use though? And
Hmm.
so that's where auto regulation comes in, where we want to give someone the idea of like 3 sets of 8 to 12 with a 0 to 2 proximity to failure, meaning you have 0 to 2 repetitions in reserve, and kind of like, oh, okay, that tells me that I just got to kind of, I'll find the weight once it feels like this. So you want some auto regulation and stuff built into a program.
Yeah.
Um, I did spend some time this week kind of prepping, because I know you had emailed me that question. So I did make a 12-week program. I'll email you the link to the Google Doc. So if anybody's watching this program, this podcast, and they want to download it, um, It's free to download. It's a 12-week program that you'll be able to do drop downs as far as exercise selection. It's a 3-day a week program. The progression's already pre-built out. There's a logbook that you can print out if you want to do that, or you can just use a notebook. Um, and it's modifiable, so you can kind of change the exercises to whatever equipment you have available. But yeah, it's a perfectly fine, suitable program for a beginner. Start very low volume, start very low intensity, kind of ramp up over the first 6 weeks. And then in the second 6 weeks, you can change out your exercises, same movement patterns, just different exercises. So that way you can, feel like it's still fresh, ramp it up again. And if you want to just keep running that 12 weeks into perpetuity, you can, because you're hitting every muscle group that you, in the amount of times you need to hit it within the week.
Mhm.
And, you can kind of change from there. So yeah, I'll get that over to you.
That's awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I have done that just out of sheer curiosity. I threw that into Chat GPT, and I mean, it did give me a whole thing on what to do with like cardio and strength and mix and whatever, But it was the same thing. I took it into the garage gym and I put it up and I said, okay, now we're going to do this. Which barbell am I going to use for that? So it's like, yeah, it's the 8 to 12 repetitions, but then it's like, okay, going to failure. So it was a lot of trial and error to see what, and then I had to scribble it down, because it's just, you don't know where to start. It's
Yeah.
not, and it also, it wasn't taking anything of me as a person into consideration, like what you said. Do I like this? Do I hate it? Is this doable for me with my, health history? Is this even safe? So
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. You, and it's tough because there's that barrier, there's that economic barrier, right? Like not everybody can afford to hire a coach. um you know so some people, because of that lack of economic security, or ability to pay or whatever, like they can't, so it's tough. But if you can, I would highly encourage to, like, if you're going to do an online thing, to get a coach first. Because you'll learn those proximity failures. So like usually the nice thing about a coach, especially if it's 6 months, is if they're reviewing video, they're getting you to that point to where you know what hard enough is, you know what barbells
Hmm.
you need to be using, you've calibrated your intensities and stuff. And so then after the coach, if you want to switch over to templates, then you're good with templates. And templates, you can execute them well because you've already got that experience from a coach telling you like how to execute. So that's where a coach is valuable. Can a beginner make good progress straight off of a template? Yes, they can. But like I mentioned earlier, and like you just said, it's going to be a lot of trial and error. You're going to have to be trying to figure out a lot of things. You're not going to know if you're doing the right intensities or not. Um, a good example is one of my clients. He's a remote client. It's been 2 months, and we are just now, after 2 months, is he finally starting to use, make weight selections where I'm like, yep, that's the correct weight. Because every time he send me a video, yeah, that looks good, man, but probably need to go 5, 10 pounds heavier next week.
Hmm.
Yeah, that looks good, but probably need to go 5 pounds. Finally, he sent me a video of him doing some incline dumbbell bench, and he's like, "These were hard," and I was like, I could tell from the very first rep that was going to be the correct weight. Like, I'm so proud of you. You finally found it. And he's like, okay, cool. And
Right.
so there's a benefit to that, though, kind of like that trial and error, kind of taking time, because you are giving your tendons and stuff a chance to adapt. So maybe, and that might be something encouraging for some folks. Download a template, you start running it, even if you're undershooting, you're still doing something, and
Hmm.
just having that intention of like trying a little bit harder every time. Your tendons are adapting, you're getting neuromuscular adaptations, your ligaments are adapting. So it's like, you're probably going to be in it for the long run, even if you undershoot, as long as you're putting in effort every time and you're trying a little bit harder every time. That would be the best course of action if you just want to do straight template. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. When so let's say somebody starts and talk to me about equipment. So let's say I can only buy one thing.
Mm.
What is the one thing you're like, this is you absolutely have to take it? And then what is the one thing where you're like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen, don't buy that.
Yeah. It's tough, right? Because if you could only buy one thing, but there's some things that cost like $5,000, and it's like,
Right.
well, I can buy all kinds of things. Um, so I think it's going to be dependent on someone's level of experience.
Hmm.
Like someone like me, I probably need a lot more equipment and variety of equipment, so that way I can continue to train in a manner that will allow for progression while not risking any kind of overuse injuries. So,
Mm,
like for instance, like I can only bench press barbell bench press so many times per week because my shoulder will start giving me trouble. So there's only so much volume I can get on my chest via the bench press. But if I have access to tables and chest press machines and dumbbells, I can get more volume in and my shoulders are happy. And so that variety really helps. So I think it depends on the level of experience for a person. If someone's just getting started though, and they're like, I just need to do something, uh, I would say a 12-inch box that's fairly sturdy is going to be
mhm,
very useful. And some sort of bag or container that you can put things in to make it heavier.
mhm,
I think that would be very useful to start because if your legs are undertrained, all you need to do is just practice sitting on that 12-inch box and standing up without assistance. And you're working your legs. You're filling up that bag and you can push it over your head multiple times. You're working your shoulders and your arms. You can take that bag and you can just bend over with it and stand upright, bend over with it, stand upright. You're working your glutes and your lower back. You can bend over and row that bag. Now you're working your upper back. Heck, you could even lay on your back on the floor and push that bag off, and now you're working your chest in some fashion. So, um, if you really want it, there's a way. I believe there's a Instagram account I follow. I think his tag is like Gym Rat in Gaza, and this young man's incredible. He's filming his fitness journey while in Gaza, and so it's sad to see. You know, it's rubble all around him, and the buildings are demolished and stuff. But he's using the exposed rebar to help do pull-ups.
mm,
He's doing his deadlifts and his rows and his squats with water jugs that are tied to a pipe. You know, and he's still doing his biceps curls, and so like he really wants it. He's figuring it out.
yeah,
That's an extreme example. Fortunately, we're in a much more privileged position, so
yeah,
a box and a backpack is suitable. As you progress, if you really, really want to do this stuff at home, a barbell, a squat rack, an adjustable bench, maybe a landmine attachment, which is like a tube that you can put the
mhm,
barbell in to like swivel. Um, I think you could get a lot of great work just with those three pieces of equipment, four pieces of equipment, and some weights. And then yeah, as you progress, you might need to get some machines like cables and stuff like that. But to start,
mhm.
it's easy.
What's the one
Uh,
equipment where you roll your eyes?
I'm trying to think, like maybe because I always try to like maybe everything has a purpose. I think I think the thing that people stand on that shakes them. Facing I think
The
like, what do
vibration plates?
yeah, like I don't know what you're doing with that. So probably a vibration plate would be the one piece of equipment where see someone with that and like, bro, you're just standing there and you're not even
Mhm,
doing the vibrations doing everything for you. So if I had to say any piece of equipment, it would probably be that.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I have seen them. It's funny because sometimes they are marketed as just a tool for your lymphatic system, which I'm like, okay. But when I see them being marketed as an exercise equipment, even with the bands attached so you can train your arms while you're standing on the plate, I'm like, this is not it. This is not this is weird. Okay.
Yeah, if you add that to any exercise, that's just a worse way to do that exercise. I think so,
Yeah.
yeah. I wouldn't know anything about like any other benefits from it. So just being very, very narrowly focused in terms of like exercise, hypertrophy, strength training, in that very narrow focus, like I don't think that's worth anything. So
Yeah.
yeah.
My thing is, I don't know. I'm sure you have seen those bungee contraptions on the wall, and then we're like jumping with it and stuff. And they are very. It's a bungee cord. It's essentially a bungee
Mhm.
cord, you know. And I'm somebody. If you're listening and this is your thing, please correct me. But every time I see these group classes with the bungee cords, I always think like this looks like a lot of fun, but it does not look like you're building muscle with it. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's a little it it I don't know. It's like fun for adults. We're reliving childhood. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, I think
that gets me.
yeah, I think over the years I've tried to develop this kind of perception of like everything has a potential to have a purpose.
Hmm.
And I think you hit the nail on the head with that. It's probably fun, so if the
Right.
option is, yeah, if you told me if you told me, hey, this person's got 45 minutes there, they're gonna be hopping around using that bungee thing, getting their heart rate up and stuff, or they're gonna be sitting on the couch. Yeah,
Right.
let them have at it. But I think it is important to know what the purpose, like if we go into things knowing the purpose of it, and
Hmm.
if that modality is achieving that purpose, I think that that's very important. So that's where the marketing of stuff gets on me. Is I would agree with you. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want someone doing that thinking, oh, I'm going to build muscle and tone up and stuff like that. Probably not. Like probably not. But if you're doing it because, well, I like it, it's fun, it gets my heart rate up, and otherwise I'd be sitting on the couch. Like, yeah, have at it,
Yeah.
have at it. So I think, yeah, being very honest about the purpose of something is super important. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Okay. Last question.
Okay.
And this is also, I need to hear this. Because recovery, right? Recovery time. And you mentioned it in the beginning a little bit where you said, I make sure with my clients that there is a very appropriate recovery time built into the program.
Hmm.
And then there's people like me who think that recovery time, I feel lazy, right? I'm like, oh, I feel lazy. I'm not doing anything. This is wrong. What is the purpose and what is your favorite, I guess, how do you want your clients to spend their recovery day?
Oh, okay. So we're talking about recovery between days, not necessarily between sets.
Hmm.
um, I want my ideal client is spending uh, their recovery day um, keeping caffeine intake to a minimum,
Hmm.
and that is so that way they can maximize their sleep quality and sleep duration. So if I'm talking anything recovery, the first thing is going to be sleep. I need you to get that 7 to 8 hours, and I need it to be of a very high quality. That that will have such positive downstream effects both on physical recovery but also mental recovery. Like I was dealing with insomnia for a few years after opening the gym. I was very stressed out. I'm prior service military, so there was stuff going on there. So I would like close my eyes and wake up, close my eyes and wake up. I was so the brain fog and the intrusive thoughts and the negative thoughts and the dark thoughts like were so easy to creep in from a
Hmm.
mental perspective. And then from a physical perspective, I could be feeling fine, 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 and then all of a sudden explode. My back would tweak, my shoulder would
Hmm.
blow up, my hamstring would pull. Like my body just could not, and it didn't matter how easy I went in my training, how little volume I was doing, I could not keep up because I was not sleeping. And so oftentimes when I have a client that, oh, my back hurts, my back's been hurting, something's been hurting, how's your sleep? It's usually my first question, how's your sleep? And
Hmm.
99% of the time the answer is, oh, my sleep is trash. Okay, let's look into that. Let's look into what do we need to do to what steps do we need to do to fix your sleep? And if it's stress management, you're stressed out at work. Um, I had one client, she recently she was struggling. She's in school, so she's working on her master's degree. Plus, work was really crazy. Plus, she's trying to juggle like her diet. Plus, she's trying to juggle gym. Everything was going crazy. So, we did some motivational interviewing and came up with a plan of like, hey, let's start time blocking. Let's write out your itinerary for the day. Assign every 30 minutes what you're going to be doing in that 30 minutes. And gave her some structure for her days, and that helped a lot. She started sleeping better. She started showing up to the gym more. School was getting easier. So like what do we need to do to get your sleep in line? And let's start working on doing those things. So that's the first thing that I have if my ideal client's doing is getting in really good sleep. The next thing for recovery is likely, adequate protein intake. So we're looking at like zero point 0.8 grams of protein for every pound of lean body mass. So a lot of people get this confused, especially men. I'll have guys that are weighing 250 pounds and they're like, oh, it's hard, I'm trying to get in 250 grams of protein. Like, okay, bro, you're at like 33% body fat,
Yeah.
40% body fat. You don't need 250 grams of protein. You're probably good with like 150 grams. So let's just focus on that smaller goal and do that consistently. And then those extra calories you can use for carbs because you need those to fuel your muscles and your brain and all that other good stuff. So after sleep would be just really dialing in the nutrition a bit. After sleep and nutrition, I would probably be talking about stress management, which usually stress management is very closely tied to sleep. So do you need to learn how to meditate? If they're religious, maybe you need to pray some more. If you find comfort and relief in that, maybe you need to start practicing more mindfulness throughout the day. So turn off the podcast if that's what you're listening to when you're folding clothes, and just focus on the action of folding clothes, or like just do the things that you need to do to get a hold of your stress. If you're constantly in a state of anxiety, thinking about all the bad things that are going to happen, maybe you need to learn to verbalize, hey, those things are not happening right now.
Mhm.
And what's happening right now is I'm driving. And so I am driving right now. That's what I'm, kind of like learn to manage anxiety and stress, I think is a big component of active recovery. Because your body doesn't know the difference. It does not know the difference between mental stress and physical stress.
Mhm.
So when you're worried about the lion that's hiding in the bushes, that's not really there,
Yeah.
you're having negative effects on your recovery and stuff. So those would be the big things, and the modalities that people utilize for that stress relief can vary. For me, it's sitting down, turn off my brain, just playing some video games. That's it. Some people, they like to get massage. Some people like to do foam rolls. Some people like to do sauna. I often try to make sure people understand that those modalities that purport increased recovery, massage, sauna, red light therapy, all that, ice baths, whatever. It's kind of like the bands that we talked about. We need to understand what the purpose of that thing is for it to maximize its usefulness. Those things are not having a direct biological impact on your recovery. They are having more of a psychological impact.
Mhm.
You are relieving stress by doing those things, and you're probably well aware of this. The best thing that you can do for your mental health is something. Like,
Yeah.
as long as you're actively doing something to help with your mental health, it can be anything, you'll see positive effects. And so those things are less about increasing biological recovery and more so mental recovery, to free up resources for sleep to do its job and nutrition to do its job and allow you to recover a little bit faster. Um, and I think that distinction is important, because oftentimes I'll have people that are struggling with their recovery. They're constantly hurt. They're not seeing progress. They feel like crap in the gym. They're low energy. And it's like, well, let's get your sleep and nutrition. Like, oh, no, I'm just going to go get a massage. That'll settle it. It's like, no, that's not going to fix the issue. The
Mhm.
massage isn't what you need right now. You need to sleep better and you need some protein. You can still get your massage. That's fine. But that is a smaller component compared to these fundamental issues that you have not addressed. Um, and so that's my big thing with coaching is, let's address the elephant in the room, which is the sleep, which is the nutrition. These other modalities are an important component of that mental stress and mental health, but it doesn't matter how healthy you are mentally if you're not sleeping. Just not going to happen. So
Yeah.
I kind of went on a rant on that, but I'm big on recovery, so sorry about that.
No, I appreciate it. And essentially, what you're saying is, I mean, anyone who has ever coached anyone about anything, it doesn't matter if that's life coaching, financial coaching, people always go for the outside band-aid fix that they pay for, like the massage. I don't have to do the massage, somebody else does it for me, and boom, fixed, right? But the
Hmm.
stuff that's where actually the magic happens, the nutrition, the sleep, the habits, that's the things I actually have to do. I have to do them myself. They're free too. They're free. They don't cost
Oh
you
yeah.
anything, but I have to do them. And that's the hurdle right there. Oh, that's work for me. That's not work
Hmm.
for somebody else.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's just it's I don't know if that's a cultural thing, in our just Americans, or if that's just human nature. I'm not sure, but yeah, the free basics are gonna take you a lot further than the paid premium, cherry on top.
Hmm.
So and you'll if you talk to any high level athlete, any successful person, whether it be in business or whatever, they will always tell you that it is about doing the basics really, really well and consistently. And so when we're talking about exercise and improving your health, it is about showing up and doing basic exercises, trying to get really good at them and doing them consistently for a long period of time, trying to consistently go to bed on time and get appropriate sleep, trying to consistently eat a well balanced diet. And a well balanced diet would be a combination of, lean proteins, lots of vegetables, which would be a mix of, green leafy vegetables and cruciferous vegetables. So you're not just eating broccoli, you're eating all kinds of vegetables.
Yeah.
You know, fruit. You talk to guys. I had one client once. I asked her, "When's the last time you ate a vegetable?" And she just like stopped. And she's like, that hit my soul. She's like, when you asked me that, I could not think of the last time I ate a vegetable. And so
Oh.
she actively tries to make sure she's eating a vegetable, at least one serving of vegetables every day. Better than nothing. Um, some sort of carb source, grains, things like that. So well balanced diet. Those are hard. They're basics. They're
Hmm.
simple, but they're hard. You do those, everything else just gets a lot easier.
Hmm. Well, it's also hard because there's a lot of programming around us. I mean, we constantly have to withstand the temptations, right? The temptation to watch one more episode or read one more chapter, or the fast food that's everywhere. That just watching commercials the other day. I told my husband, I said, just watch the commercial break, and then we're going to categorize everything. Okay, we have a pharmaceutical, we have junk food, oh, alcohol. Ooh, sports bets, so gambling, more junk food, another pharmaceutical, and that's just all it is on TV, right? This is just
Yeah.
constantly going into your brain. So you have to be the one. How do we say harder to kill? That's the biggest
Mhm,
rebellion you can ever have, is taking care of yourself.
mhm. Yeah, the the toxic food environment and the toxic advertising that we experience, like it is an uphill battle. That's why I feel bad for the folks that are extremely overweight because it in a lot of ways it is not their fault. Like they are likely dealing with unresolved trauma at some level. Pair that with a toxic food environment, a culture of instant gratification, and then the overarching thing with it would also just be uh, genetics that are not helpful with all of that going on, right? So like some
Hmm.
people can stay pretty lean all their whole life, but they just have the genetics that let them fight against that toxic food environment versus someone else who 5,000 years ago who's always hungry. Guess what? That person who's always hungry is probably the reason why we survived as a species, because they were looking for food all the time,
Yeah.
right? Um, but that's not a useful genetic trait anymore with our current environment. And so it's like
Yeah.
it is an uphill battle for them, all that food noise and stuff.
Hmm.
And yeah, the programming that you see is it's tough.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, you have to have a lot of empathy for people who are struggling, especially with their weight.
Hmm. And I mean, I weighed about like 230 pounds at one point when I was younger, so I know what it's like. I know the thought concepts that go through your head every single day, but also you get pushed into that diet mentality immediately until this whole like, how about we just eat real food?
Hmm.
That was never a subject. It was all the diets and the pills, and here's the cabbage soup diet and all of those things, right? That's where you get trapped in that almost.
Uh-huh.
And then you have the programming all around you, like what you said, we're
Uh-huh.
wired to eat, but then we're putting a mammal that's wired to eat into a all you can eat buffet environment. That's just
Yeah,
not gonna work.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, and it's tough too because like there's that kind of stigma of Whole Foods. I think that permeates within the society of like they're just not tasty, and if we're being realistic about it, they're not. Like a side of steamed vegetables is not going to be as it's not going to trigger all those little signals in your head as a side of queso,
Yeah.
right? Like it just you- so and the funny thing is well, you don't want your food to taste like queso every time because that's what keeps you going back for more. You do kind of want your food to be fairly not to say bland, but like you don't want it to be flavored to the point where it triggers you to continually want to eat more and more and more without stopping. Um,
Mm,
but the battle to make that change sometimes comes down to genetics and perception. And oftentimes I use, so it's nothing to do with discipline. Oftentimes I use kind of the example of like you and I could have the same ice cream cone, and we're both eating ice cream, and the enjoyment that I get out of that ice cream is a 7, maybe a 6.5 out of 10. So I could
mhm,
very easily just eat that one cone and I'm done. You
right.
know, you could be eating that same ice cream cone, but just the way your brain is wired, you're getting an 11 out of 10 experience from it. It is so, so good.
Mhm,
It's a lot harder for you to say no to the next, like you, right? It's a way, so it's not that I'm more disciplined. It's just like, I just don't want any more ice cream. Where you have that thing in your head calling you to get that second scoop. So yeah, it's a
yeah.
tough hand to be dealt. We're saying it. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. And it's genetic. I mean, like you said, we even see it in our family with siblings where one behaves like mom and one behaves like dad, and it's a different food behavior. It's
Mhm.
one eats to live and one lives to eat,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know? Yeah.
We even see it with exercise enjoyment. Like
Mhm,
some people, like someone like me, I'm probably wired to really enjoy exercise, and so that's why when I exercise, I've always gotten a lot out of to set physical challenge. And other people, not so much,
right.
not so much. And we can go back 10,000 years and see, well, what those genetic predispositions, like what role did they play within these early societies? And we could probably talk about that all day. Um, but yeah, everyone's just, yeah. So kind of, not to say that like people aren't responsible for their choices. I think
Mm,
more so it's a matter of like understanding these things and then setting appropriate expectations for yourself, and also knowing about these things about yourself to try to like put together an environment that makes sense for you. So like if we have chocolate in the house, cookies in the house, I'm going to be sneaking in the cupboard like a raccoon and nibbling at them all throughout the day. Or my wife could have it sitting on the table and she can walk by every day
mhm,
without it and just grab one little piece and then she's happy. And so it's just, so I know that about myself. So after Halloween, and my wife was going to take that 5.5 pound bag of candy home with us. I was like, no, ma'am, take what you want out of that. Give the rest to, these folks over here. We're not taking that home because
mhm,
I will eat it. And that's not going to fit with my goals right now.
mhm,
So I had to make that choice because I didn't want to put myself in a losing situation later on.
mhm,
So I think that if it comes down to like responsibility or choice for people, it's more so like trying to make choices that don't put you in a position where you're likely to lose
mhm,
later on. It is That's where the choice comes down. But then, but if you're in a position where you're very likely to lose, like it's kind of out of your control at that point. You're stuck. But try a little bit harder next time, like earlier. So
yep. Know
kind of,
thyself and then work with it.
yeah.
Yeah. Which brings us full circle to what you said in the beginning about enjoyment. That when somebody is not wired necessarily to be like, yeah, I'm the athlete, I'm the exercise person, you need to find something that they enjoy so they stick with it.
Yeah. Whether it be weight training or running or swimming or CrossFit, or maybe it's combat sport, pickleball,
Mhm.
something like just get off your butt and do something. I had
Yeah.
one guy do he was a remote client for 6 months. Gosh, we would maybe get one session done once a week, maybe, and his compliance was super, super low. So he came off roster. His wife is still a client, and then a few months later, I see him. And he looks great. I'm like, "Hey, what have you been doing?" He's like, "Well, I started running, and I really loved it. And I just kept running. So I've been just running. I run miles and miles and miles, and I love it." And say, "Great, great. That's what you needed to do. Then you're a runner. You're not a
Yeah.
weightlifter. That's why you never did it."
Yeah.
So, that's how it just is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, this was fun.
yeah.
And I'm looking at the clock and I could drag this out for another 2 hours just because out of, personal experiences and how we are doing this in this environment and in this modern world that we're living in. So, but first of all, thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with us and for you doing what you're doing. I think this is a very, very undervalued profession, and we need more people like you that make it enjoyable for people so they stick with it and get to know themselves better and can work with themselves and really achieve their goals, which it all comes down to. Achieve your goal without constantly dragging your feet and absolutely hating every minute of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, thank you very much, and I really appreciate you sharing your platform with me. Hopefully, this kind of adds some value for your audience, or maybe just kind of hearing about it reduces any hesitation someone has of maybe starting to work on their health in some fashion. Their physical health. You know, yeah, and I'll send over a link to that program I mentioned earlier. You
Hmm.
can put that in the show notes if you want,
Yep.
and that'll be free for people to use.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, everybody, check out the show notes, and you will find that gold nugget there. And that's huge. So thank you very much for doing this. And I will also add all of your platforms and website in the show notes so people can actually find you and work with you since you're doing remote as well. No matter where you
Oh
are
yeah,
in the world, you can work with Sal and get fit.
yeah. Well, thank you very much, Nolan. I appreciate it. See ya.
All right, y'all. Subscribe and like and share, and see y'all next week. Bye. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, a review, and share it with somebody you think needs this. Have a fabulous day. See you next time.